Welcome to the TuMeke Ergonomics Podcast. I'm Matt Jeffs. Today's guest is a certified professional ergonomist who leads Sandalwood Engineering and Ergonomics Injury Prevention Division as a manager of growth and technology. It's my pleasure to introduce to the TuMeke Ergonomics Podcast, Mitch Carswell. Mitch, welcome to TuMeke Ergonomics. How are you today?
Good, man. Always good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Last time we talked, we got into some really cool things, and I thought it was time we should get back together and catch up with one another. So if you have a few moments, it'd be good for our audience to hear what you've got to say. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it.
All right, cool. Well, you have focused on human-centered design, and that's one of the things I remember from our previous talks. Was there a defining moment in your career that you just knew tech could improve workplace ergonomics? Share one if there is.
Definitely. I think one of them that comes to mind was just back in undergraduate studies. I had an opportunity to work with the Siemens Process Simulate software. Well, originally Jack at that time in an introductory course. And what I just got to do in that was just some very basic posturing and some very basic analysis through that. But that was the first time it really kind of clicked to me that there was like opportunities in looking at stuff before it actually hits like a plant floor or before anything gets designed, that we can evaluate what it's like to have that human interact with something in like a virtual environment. So that was one of them that really sticks out to me. And then, you know, you go through some upper year courses and you start to apply some of those, it all started to click a little bit more for me. So that's one that really stands out.
That is cool. You now lead an injury prevention division. And what innovations have you introduced to enhance ergonomics in the vein we're talking about? And how have they played out in the workplace safety world?
Sandalwood is a company I work with. We are primarily a professional services firm, and we work basically with what our clients give us, but we like to work with giving like whatever software systems they have. So I've been fortunate enough to work across a whole bunch of different software suites and really apply what is like going to work best for our client. A lot of those recently have been getting involved more with motion capture, with traditional marker setups, like through the XN system, which is very cool to integrate. But what's even cooler to me too is all of the different softwares that are coming out with markerless motion capture and what we can do with camera-based. So I know we've done some work with TuMeke. We've done some work with a few of the other competitors and Inseer, 3Motion AI, and everyone's got a different little flavor on that. And I think that's what's really nice is I get to see all those different ones come in and match those to their clients accordingly.
You're right. Everybody has a little bit different spin on it, and that's very healthy for the field, isn't it?
Yeah. It truly is. It truly is. It's like at the end of the day, there's so many great options out there. But what I think is really important to understand is what our customers are looking for and what our clients' needs are. And then trying to match them up, or if they have an idea or they're already working with something that matches their systems, being able to learn that, grow our team's expertise and knowledge in that space as well, and then just keep rolling with it. So it's been great. I've got to see a whole bunch of different software suites out there, and it's been a lot of fun for me as someone who really thrives in that space and enjoys getting to learn how they all work and the fun little nuances of each one and what they really excel at.
Well, you're one of those digital natives we've been hearing about for so long now.
I did, yes. I've grown up in a time where I was very fortunate. My family, I had a computer at a young age too. So, started playing video games at a young age, and I ended up playing them, when you had to load the CD-ROM in. I wasn't quite there for the floppy disk age, but was started up with the CD games and then going from there. I remember getting them out of cereal boxes too. So that was a fun time.
It's all good. It's all good. And your background spans a lot of things like engineering, something close to my heart, lean manufacturing and business development. You mentioned earlier about expanding your scope and teams and all. How do these and your background with them influence your approach to expanding Sandalwood's presence in the ergonomics field?
Yeah. It definitely started out more with that engineering, human kinetics focus and really focused in on the biomechanical side of it and understanding that, which really drove me into the engineering side, which is, okay, how do we match the two? How do we match workplace design? Like if we're looking at a new workstation, how do we take the biomechanical aspects of a human, design the workstation to accommodate those? And that's where it all kind of started. And then after that, I've just kind of worked through different opportunities, and definitely something I'm learning more about is the business side of it. It's still, I'll say I'm relatively new to it, but expanding and learning a lot more every day in that scope of it. But I think what really lets me do that is just having a good foundation of ergonomic principles and knowledge, and just focusing on what the customer or our clients are really looking for, and just trying to translate that back into something that we can help them with.
Well, you draw from a broad background, and we all do. And so sometimes you wonder, well, was that worth my while? But then you realize later on, wait a minute, I apply some things there. I never thought I'd apply them that way, but you know what? That experience in such and such was worthwhile. Isn't that true?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many different things and that I draw on. I look back at like some of my old summer jobs.
Right.
One of them I did work into the tool and mold area as well. So hot injection molding is kind of one of my first summer jobs. Oh. I know you had a couple other ones lined up for me there, but this was one that I really was interested in because, my dad and his dad worked in this same field, and it was the first time that I actually, would go to work. And there was no air conditioning in the plant. And I was working in and behind all these machines that are around 200 degrees, melting plastic and shooting it in. So, a hot summer day in there, and it was nice and humid. So you'd be 7 a.m., get a good sweat on already. And then we'd be lifting up all of these heavy parts. By 11 o'clock, you're already gassed. And I was young at the time too. So those were one of the jobs that I realized could really make a difference on people with just the right solutions. And just thinking properly about how you can lay out the workstation. So that's what got me thinking about it. And I continued to work there through my undergrad schooling. And it was just one of those, I would come back in after like second or third year, once I started to get a principle or like a basic understanding of ergo. And I would just apply it to how I would do certain things there and see how it would impact it. It was definitely interesting. But yeah, that was one of those that always comes back to me as like, why are we doing this? And, my previous experience there, I never thought that I would be still thinking about it, 10, 15 years later, but here we are.
Yeah. And, before we hopped on, we were talking about the broadening scope of ergonomics, and we discussed environmental ergonomics and the fact that that is a thing. And you're right. You think about, well, what's the setting in? What's the relative humidity? What's the heat, as you described? And then you start using organizational ergonomics to go, well, wait a minute. Does this task need to be done in the heat of the day? Maybe it would be better if this were something the night shift did, for instance. I'm just throwing something out when it's cooler and there's less ambient heat. And we start to cycle through all those things. And that's what broadens our scope in the 21st century. We see ergonomics a lot differently than just monitor height and keyboard height, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And even then, I try and get out of the office ergonomic side of it as much as I can and really focus in on the industrial side, so warehousing and workstation development. But all of those things too, your environment plays such a big role in how you perceive work. Definitely heat is a huge one for fatigue and recovery. And just, I know working in that hot plant every day, 2 or 3 o'clock comes and you're absolutely drained. No matter what you did that day, you're all sweat out.
Yeah, where I grew up and where I worked as an ergonomist at a paper plant for about 6 solid years was 40 miles from where Gatorade was invented and 40 miles from where the heat index was invented. So I know this well. And we used to literally do weigh-ins and weigh-outs. And you would see, like you say, at the end of the shift, hey, you're 4 pounds down from when you weighed in. And it's like, you've got to make that back up before you come back here tomorrow or whenever the next shift is. Yeah. It's, as well as I do, it's not only a physical drain, it's cognitive as well, Yeah, so,
that heat stress just plays in on so many different levels too, and can definitely impact like how you think through doing something. So can definitely impact safety if like you could continue to go down that path too, right? You get hot, you get tired, you can start to take a shortcut. So
yes, you put your hand where it didn't belong, and next thing you know, you're recordable. As an ergonomics project engineer, what are some other challenging projects you've worked on, and did you overcome any obstacles to get to safer work and more efficient work settings? Any other wins you could share with us?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of them, and there's not like, I don't want to get too specific in them, but I think I'll talk more on some of the difficulties and the obstacles. And one of the ones that I've always had to, not always had to, but depending on the organization that we work with, is justifying why we're doing something, right? So every group that we talk to typically needs a different answer to the question why. So when you talk to an engineering team, it's going to be different than when you talk to the financing team. And, they all have a different why. And as an ergonomist, that was something that I struggled with initially, is why are we getting asked the same question in different ways, right? And so that's something that I've tried to work through, is understanding why they're asking it in a certain way and how I can justify it in a way that makes sense to them too, right? So when you work with like that financing team, it's like, well, here's your return on investment, right? The engineering team, it's here's your productivity improvement. And then there's other different aspects too. You work with a union. Well, this is how we're going to reduce a risk area. And this is what we're going to do to ensure that your, brother in the union or your coworker here is not going to get hurt. So it's about translating between those different groups and really understanding where they're coming from and converting it back to their language.
That's exactly right. And you're resonating with me. At that paper plant that I described, starting out, there were 4 unions, actually a 5th one there. And they froze me out initially. And they said, hey, pal, because I had to do a physical demand analysis on 200 job titles. There were 1,300 employees, but 200 job titles. Well, anyway, they stopped me on the operations floor and said, hey, pal, last time somebody asked questions like you did, jobs were lost. I went back to senior leadership and said, is this true? And they said, yeah, we did have an engineering firm come through here, streamlined the production. And we used to be a 1,700 employee plant. So I was like, great, and I backed off. And then I remember, gets to our lean thing earlier. I remembered the Deming cycle, and I remembered that this was something I could convey to the unions. So I explained that the plan is actually the physical demand analysis. The do is the post-offer employment test. The check is the fit for duty test, and the adjust is the return to work test. They're all the same screen. And then I finally got through that. The point you just made was, we're here to actually help you have a long, rewarding career. And once I did that, the unions became my biggest proponents. They were like, hey, we want this guy here full time. And you're right. You have to have these different conversations with each element within a workplace.
Yep, absolutely. One of them that always stands out to me is I was going through a launch with a client, and again, middle of summer, long hours, long days. So tensions were getting a little high, but it was always one that I'll remember. I had this one individual similar to you. I was going station by station, doing different assessments. And then I get to one station towards the end of my day, towards the end of their day as well. And, they kind of look at me, they're like, oh, what are you here for? And I'm like, oh, I'm here just like, I have to go through, ensure that the workstation's safe and all this. And she's like, oh, you're here probably just to cut my job. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm here to ensure that you can work every day until you retire. And I want you here every day until you retire. She wasn't too much of a fan of that. I think she liked taking a couple days off here and there. But, I did say that, I'm like, I want you here every single day until you retire. So, you get to have a little bit of fun with it every now and then.
You never know how that's going to land.
Yeah, exactly. But I meant it with everything. I wanted her there every day.
Yeah.
So
No, it's interesting, the situations you find yourself within. And you interned at Ford Motor Company, so you've had vast experience in a major manufacturing setting. Probably, I would assume, applied lean as well. And did that shape your understanding of ergonomics in like a high stakes industrial setting like Ford? I mean, how did you build a comfort level?
Yeah, definitely. I think, starting out in hot injection molding and stuff like that, I was used to the automotive environment. At
Right.
first, being from like the Windsor, Ontario area, there's a big union presence. A lot of my friends were what were known as TPTs at the Chrysler minivan plant. So I would always hear stories about what was going on in there. So when I got my opportunity to go intern, I was actually at the Oakville plant and they were in the middle of a launch. It was just a great opportunity to really see the impacts that ergonomics can have in so many different levels too. Again, I was there and I was almost doing workstation checks too. So very similar experience to you. I had a line supervisor come over to me during my internship and he's like, well, what are you doing? You can't be on our line. I'm like, well, like I'm here doing an internship. Like this is my point of contact. And he's like, okay, you're going to have to do it from back over there. And I'm like, oh, great. This is exactly what every person on the assembly line wants to see is someone with a clipboard and a vest just standing back behind the fences. And they have no idea why I'm doing back there.
Yeah.
So I learned really quick that I'm like, okay, I need to find a way to convey to these people that I'm like not here to cut jobs. I'm just here to assess it. So I ran upstairs, went right to the computer, my laptop, and then on an 8x11 sheet of paper, I just typed in 4 letters. It just said ergo. And I just would put that on the back of my clipboard. And so I would watch someone, I'd try and flag them down and I would just show them the ergo sign. And then they'd usually give me a nod or a thumbs up. And I'm like, okay, good. I can continue my evaluation here without having to do it. So it was, you have fun. It's a little bit high stakes. And to the line supervisor's credit, like the person I was working with was relatively new and it caused the line to go down a couple times. So completely understand where they were coming from and why I couldn't be doing it at that time. So learned really quick and, adapted, improvised, and overcame.
I love stories like that. I really do. Yeah. I had something similar. I've done a lot of processing plants for foods. And in one, it was a vast plant, like 5,000 employees, and many of them, English wasn't a primary language. So I had to go into these production lines and do analysis like you're describing. Well, there was a language barrier and there were a bunch of young ladies who didn't speak English and I didn't speak their language. And you're right. You have that awkwardness of you're standing off with a camera and everybody's like, what's this? And they fear the worst. So anyway, just to break the ice, as they looked to me and I pointed to the camera and then I struck a pose like this and they all broke out laughing and we broke the ice like that. It was, I kind of did one of these, and they did it back. And then it was like all cool. And you have to, even without a language, even with a language barrier, you do have to convey a certain amount of trust. And I love the ergo sign, just holding up the clipboard. Good thinking. Yeah,
definitely. It just goes back, I think, to one of the big overarching sides of it is just building relationships, right?
Yes.
And definitely within, dealing with the union side, like those relationships are very key. Just to break into those conversations and have that, it's a tough field to break into, but, once you establish those relationships, you really have to earn your trust in there is something that I've learned. But once it's earned, it's very much like reciprocated. So it just takes time and you got to do it the right way. So I always let my data speak for itself and try and be as objective as possible. And, sometimes you're breaking bad news, but when you have two parties like that, one side's always going to hear the good news. One side's always going to hear the bad news. So, you try and find the balance, but you always just let the data speak for itself is the approach that I've always taken.
Well, you've also always come at this with a solid foundation in kinesiology. You've got graduate certification in ergonomics. How does that academic background in human movement and design inform your strategies? Have you ever thought about, what do I bring to this and what did all that background mean? Do you mind sharing maybe a perspective in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely helps with an understanding. And I tried to focus more on like the physics and the actual, like, I'll say the free body diagram of how the body moves. But one thing that I always relied on, it was being a proponent of doing the work myself. So getting a feel for it. So
yes,
I know I was just at a client site 2 weeks ago. And then we were there, the union was there, and we were building a product. And I was there to assess this one workstation. I'm like, okay, like, just walk me through how you do a couple of them. Okay, that's great. I want to try. And they're like,
Yes.
luckily we had a day where the plant was down. We had time. I ended up building 30 or 40 units that day, kind of like their daily volume, just to get a feel for what that was. It was a long day for me, but I could exactly tell you which body parts were going to be of concern, what has it. So like, I'm always a proponent of, yes, I can have all the education in the world, but unless you get like some of the feel for it, you
Right.
know, some of those things are very nuanced and they're very hard to assess. What we can do in the digital space is like great for upfront. And if you understand those limitations and, you simulate those movements enough time, you can get an estimation for where those high pain points may be. And those
Right.
are going to be the flags that you look for immediately once you start to progress. But just getting out there and doing the work yourself, nothing beats it.
That's brilliant. It really is. And you're exactly right. It's, as I said in a recent interview, I don't remember the years of sitting in perfect rows, paying attention to the front of the classroom, but I do remember the field trips. The field trips I remember, and our work is like these field trips. We're such an honor to be able to go into these places. I've often described myself as I patterned my career after Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs. And as you hear him explain Dirty Jobs, it's what you just described. It's like you actually are, instead of being the expert or the host, you're the apprentice. And you come in and like you said, as you were describing that, I was thinking, there's no replacement for the fatigue you felt that night after the shift, and it's like, wow, I really feel this in my arm right now or something, my legs or whatever. And that's invaluable experience.
Yeah, especially for me, like I'm 90% behind a keyboard now. And, for me to actually go to work and, do physical labor for a full day, it's quite the change. So anything that they may be feeling from doing it repetitively, I feel it pretty much right away. I don't have that same musculature built up from like the industrial athletes do anymore. So I've gone a little bit soft here, Matt.
Well, speaking of going soft, I wanted to take a little bit of a throw you a curveball here, because again, you have a very cool background, and I looked over your bio before we came to this, and one of them was that you have served as a referee in the world of competitive hockey. What a game. As a referee, how have those decisions under pressure skills translated to your work, both in ergonomics and because I know you're in leadership now? How has that been for you, drawing from experiences from hockey and refereeing hockey? Can you share?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing it honestly longer than I haven't been doing it. I've hit that point in my life where I've been refereeing longer than I haven't been. So it's been amazing. It's been a lot of fun. I've met so many incredible people doing what I do, and that's respect. One of the things that I always take from it too is, is just having a quick memory too. So it's just like, it's something happens and you have to like either, move on from it. You can't like always dwell on it, but one of them is always just conflict resolution as well. Right. So there's always like, everyone always says there's two teams on the ice. I always say there's a third team, and me and my partners that are refereeing, we're that third team out there. So no matter what, somebody's always going to be unhappy with what we have to say, and they're always going to have their opinions on it. But, I have to be confident in what I saw at that point in time. And, if I'm not 100% sure, I have to rely on my team that's out there too. So I think that's something that not a lot of people see with referees is, just how much we all work together out there. It may look like just 3 or 4 people skating around, but at the end of it, we are a small unit out there and we all rely on each other. So coming from playing team sports and refereeing as a team, just, really having that chemistry as a unit really helps out in the long way. And that's, how I like to work with everybody on my team too. It's right. Everybody has a say. Doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a referee or a lines person. It doesn't matter if you're brand new associate to our team or you've been with our team 7 years. Everyone's opinion, has its merit and is valid. So I can really appreciate the insight from anybody.
Yeah, we all learned those lessons. I have to, one thing came on slowly, but I'm glad it did, was often, and I mean this, honestly and openly, is it's often that sometimes irritating personality that actually has the very important perspective. And when you can, at first you want to bristle and tighten up, and then you kind of relax and listen and go, he's right or she's right, or you know what? And when you use that humility, it actually becomes something that benefits the team, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And that's, it happens to me in reffing too. It's like, I'm not going to get every call right. And if I was, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast with you right now. I'd be doing a hockey game, in Toronto tonight or something like that.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
But, you have to accept that, sometimes you don't know it all. And it's a lesson well learned. And, I've been burned a couple of times by things that I've done wrong, but you learn from it too. And, to work with that person that has like all the ideas, it's absolutely, I feel you want to just like, oh, this is too much. Like, okay, let's just talk it down and then let's see where you're actually going with. And sometimes it's deciphering, right? And translating.
Yeah.
I've been going back to that theme a lot today, is just like understanding all of the different aspects of it. And then like, what is the actual point that we're trying to get to here? So,
yeah. And that's why I wanted to draw from some of these threads from your background, because they really do make who we are in this day and this time. And so when I thought about refereeing and, high stakes hockey, it's sort of like, wow, you've got to be able to make quick judgments. And then, as you say, stand by them. And even when, some person's, gnawing in your ear and it's sort of like, no, this is what I saw. This is what we do. There's a lesson there in leadership and in ergonomics, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And you you get more confident as you do it more.
Yes.
But, you also get to recognize when you make your mistakes a little bit more too. So that's the benefit to it. Yeah.
Well, one of the things I saw in your bio that I thought was interesting as well, only because I relate, is you worked like many of us did in the restaurant field. And that's a draw as well. Well, we do. You were, did I read you were a line cook, but you were also a manager as well? And we draw from those things. I did early jobs like that as well. And they're also fast paced, and they prepare you for managing rapid growth. And in your tech field, that's got to have a valuable well of information, or maybe I should say experience, to draw from, doesn't it? Even as something as you would think remotely is that kind of work. Not really. There's some real skills to learn there, aren't there?
Yeah. So funny enough, I've worked pretty much every position you can in a restaurant. Started as a dishwasher.
Same here.
Put in my time in the dish pit and, became a line cook and did some front of house stuff too. So, and then finished it off with a summer as a manager at a restaurant too. So, I got to work through the whole gamut of it. And it's interesting when you get the opportunity to work every position in a facility, because then you get to see how it all ties together too, right? And you get an appreciation for those little processes and how those can get like optimized and stuff like that too. The other one too, being a line cook goes back to heat stress. It gets hot in there, tempers flare. I've been there. It's been a lot of fun, and then you just have such an appreciation. I'm a firm believer that, everybody should spend a little bit of time working in a restaurant or in the hospitality industry. And it just comes back tenfold. You go out to eat, you have a much better appreciation for everything going on and all those other aspects of it. But just the pace of it too, right? It's rapid.
And these are the building blocks that build the professional that you become, with this blending of your academic background. And I didn't know about the injection molding background, but that fits into this. And what you glean from being able to make important decisions in hockey, for instance, but then also knowing that line of progression you just described in a restaurant, as well as the fast pace. I believe all those things together is what makes us, and we don't always stop and acknowledge it. That's what I'm trying to get at, but it's important. I think it helps draw, who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been a bunch of wild jobs and a lot of fun stuff, and a lot of stuff that I wouldn't recommend a lot of people to do along the way.
Right.
But, I've worked jobs that I would never recommend anybody ever work. And for that, it's always made me want to improve the workplace for others so that, hopefully they get a little taste of it, because you can't go your whole life just working a cushy, easy job. You need to face a little bit of adversity doing that. And then you get the appreciation for, being an office warrior now. So.
Yeah. And it makes you a better ergonomist. It does. It's those field trips. I'm in training, so I've designed coursework for the back school. And one of the ones I did was practical apps. And that was, we actually held the ergonomics training at a trade school. So we did only a certain amount of the PowerPoint in a classroom in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we roamed the campus. So we actually did evaluations in the welding lab, the automotive lab, the culinary lab, the dental assisting lab. And so by the end, when we came back, instead of just sitting at PowerPoint for 2.5 days, we actually, the point you just made earlier, we felt the heat of a commercial kitchen. We heard the high pitch whine of an impact driver in an automotive setting. We smelled the fumes of the welding lab. When you experience that stuff, it's not just some academic list on a PowerPoint slide. It's something we've been describing all along, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So not only for myself, just getting the chance to experience that through my work too. I was very fortunate. My postgraduate studies were at Fanshawe College, and that was just a year of core ergonomics, and we had access to the whole facility. Yeah. So our program coordinator was awesome, and she would make sure that all of our labs, we got to all of those different areas. So very similar experience where, we did sound testing throughout the whole facility. We did heat exposure in those welding labs and stuff like that.
Yes.
So that was a really cool aspect of being able to do it in an educational setting is, we get to see how it's done in a little bit more of a controlled environment than I would say how some of the manufacturing facilities that I've been in are. But it's great exposure for anybody who's interested into it.
Absolutely. I think that stuff is invaluable. And as we begin to circle this plane and prepare for our landing, I wanted to ask a couple of more things, bringing us back to the work you do nowadays. And given your strength in user-centered design, what do you see as a big challenge facing ergonomics today, like integrating tech to create safer workplaces? Do you see some obstacles we need to get over in the near future?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones is there's so many great systems out there and so many great tools. One of the challenges is getting a place or getting a system or getting a process that links them all together into something that's user-friendly. Yeah. Just being able to get all of the different pieces of the puzzle together so that, you're able to make informed decisions. You're able to stratify where you want to go in and target on bringing in improvements. So that's one of the challenges that I always see is we have a lot of great people who have great ideas and great initiatives, but one, they may not have the data or they have it in different places, and getting all of those put together into one is definitely, I think, a challenge for most people. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as we begin to land this plane, looking ahead, what's your vision for the future of workplace safety, and how do you plan to innovate with Sandalwood to make it a reality? What do you see in the not too distant future?
Yeah, definitely in the not too distant future. I'd like to see a lot more upfront design. I'm always going to say that one. I want to see more companies having access to tools to be evaluating stuff for that user before they go out and they purchase equipment. I want to see all these companies making smart investments into items and lift assists that don't become coat racks. I want to see everything, that you get purchased, get used, and, the users to have great feedback on it. So it's hardly ever the first iteration, but, we're able to get second or third ones are usually pretty good. So trying to get people to look at stuff before they really do that, and making sure that those tools are available to small to medium-sized companies is where I'd like to see that.
Do we still describe that as prevention through design? That's what it sounds like you're describing.
Yeah, prevention through design, designing for ergonomics. There's a whole bunch of different ones. Upfront design is kind of where I tend to go with it. But yeah, it takes many different faces. Yeah.
Similar points. So if people would like to learn more about you, your work, or your vision for ergonomics in the future, where's the best place that they may find you?
Yeah, best place is probably LinkedIn. Honestly, find me there. I think it's just Mitchell Carswell on LinkedIn. It's nice and easy. Or you can just find me, I believe, through the Sandalwood website, sandalwood.com.
Excellent. He's a certified professional ergonomist and an injury prevention leader. Mitch Carswell, thank you for joining us on the TuMeke Ergonomics Podcast.
Thanks, Matt.
Good to have you, and thank you for joining us as well. Until next time, this is Matt Jeffs reminding you to use AI to work smarter, not harder. See you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.